morning, everyone. So welcome to the first edition of Nextv series Southeast Asia. First of all, I would like to thank our sponsor, namely Harmonic Mirada, Bitmovin, Comcast Technology Solution, Cinemedia, Wild Mocha, Nvidia, WSC Sports, and US Agency. Special thanks also to our speakers, moderators, as well as our attendees for making this event successful. We'll now start with a quick presentation of today's agenda. So we'll start this first panel with addressable TV opportunities in Southeast Asia. Then we'll have a session on paid TV operators, OTT, D2C strategies. Moving on, we'll have a session on the role of mobile in the video ecosystem. Then we'll have a panel on TV broadcasters strategic insight, and a special session on how analytics are shaping operators' revenue and content strategy, followed by the potential for ad support and premium streaming players, and the last one on operators and broadcasters in Southeast Asia. So for the first session, I have the pleasure to have online so Prasad from Nvidia, Penny from Astromedia Solution, Kabir from Samsung Ad, David from True Digital Group, and Mark from Google. So this session will be moderated by our analyst, Ophelie from Datexis. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I have the pleasure to moderate this session where we'll be talking about addressable TV in Southeast Asia and also in the broader context of Asian markets. Don't forget to ask your questions during the live session because we have really fine speakers and it would be awesome if you could interact with them directly. I would either take the questions during the discussion or at the end. We can also take 5 minutes for that. The session will be recorded and you will be able also to find it on our website from tomorrow on. So without further ado, I would like each of you to present yourself and maybe also give a little bit more context about what's your role in the industry and also what are the context of your operating markets. Maybe we can start with Prasad, who's representing today Nvidia, our proud sponsor for this session.
Thanks, Ophelie, and good morning, everyone. My name is Prasad Sirivarapu. I'm the Chief Business Officer at Nvidia. My role primarily is to bring addressable TV deployments across globe, both in mature markets as well as the emerging markets. Primarily, Nvidia is working in addressable TV for the last 15 years. We have scores of millions of households that are addressable through our technology. And in fact, we could also say we are the pioneers in addressable TV market. We have started our work about 15 years back, as I said, and primarily we have been operating in US and European markets, where in which we started our work, and then the advertising budgets for addressable TV was about $0, and right now the market is at inflection point with several $1 billion parked for addressable TV. Having said that, though we have started our work on linear addressable TV, we are also about 5-6 years back. We also have built capabilities around digital addressability, that is essentially bringing addressable solutions on pure digital platforms through our ad serving, CSAI, and SSP capabilities. So over the last couple of years, what we have seen is there's a migration of audience across linear to digital and vice versa with the connected TVs coming in. So for the last few years, we have started working on bringing capabilities where we can manage inventories across the linear and digital platforms, cross-platform managed inventories. We have a product we call as Connexus that allows a broadcaster, a content provider, to manage the inventory across various addressable platforms, whether they are connected addressable set-top boxes or unconnected set-top boxes or even connected TVs as such. So in essence, we are pretty excited about the market opportunity in Southeast Asia and India as well. And that's where we're trying to bring our capabilities as well.
Thank you very much, Prasad. So you're working mostly on the pay TV operator side, so across different types of devices and platforms. So now I would like to ask two of our speakers. So maybe we start with David first, to introduce what you're working on, also representing a very large pay TV operators based in Thailand.
Absolutely, and thanks very much for having me as part of this panel today. So I work for True Digital in Thailand, and True Digital is the digital arm of True Corporation. And this business was established about 5 years ago to drive the transformation across our traditional TV business, but also our telco business as well. So True Digital comprises of a couple of different areas. So True ID is our digital media lifestyle and entertainment platform, which is an OTT service. We also have True Money Wallet, which is one of the largest e-wallet platforms in Thailand. And we also have a privileges and loyalty program as well. So really the idea of our management was to build out a digital ecosystem for True and also non-True customers, where they can view content, pay for content, but also earn and burn loyalty points across different touch points across that ecosystem. So my role in particular is working across the advertising solutions, and that's really focusing on any sort of technology that we can do to drive advertising monetization.
Thank you very much. And now I'm turning towards Kenny, so a little bit further in another market. Kenny is representing Astro, which is a leading commercial broadcaster and pay TV platform also in Malaysia. So can you let us know a little bit more about what you're doing in Addressable TV?
Hi, Kenny here from Astro, very near where David is. So we are from Malaysia, and as just a little bit of context, Astro has been around for about 25 years or so, and we're the largest entertainment/media network in Malaysia. So we do everything from pay TV. We are the largest pay TV operator. We're also the largest radio network in Malaysia. We also have our home/e-commerce shopping network. We also are one of the largest digital publishers in Malaysia. So we run all these different platforms. And when we talk about addressable, we're actually looking across. Today's topic, I know, is on addressable TV, and that's where we are also looking quite deeply into where we are going from on the pay TV side and also on OTT, which is another offering that we have. So that's Astro as a context.
Thank you very much. Mark, now I'm turning towards you. So you're representing Android TV. What are you working on specifically on Addressable TV, and how do you interact with operators also to implement new solutions? You're still on mute, I think.
Thank you for that introduction. My name is Mark, and I'm based out of Singapore, responsible for Android TV, now for the addressable TV opportunities globally, which we are working on. Good to see a lot of friends and partners together on this call. And I think that the context of what we're doing is to help all operators that have adopted Android TV globally monetize through addressable advertising. One of the key aspects of that is also making that addressable advertising fully compatible and able to combine reach with other digital video advertising across different surfaces, and to allow the advertisers to access all of that through, combined reach and a similar feature set.
Thank you. And now I'm turning to the last speaker of the day, Pravir. So you're representing the only OEM manufacturer on this panel. So I would like to understand a little bit more how connected devices manufacturers fit into this landscape. I think we just lost your camera.
No, I'm very much here.
Please go ahead.
I just switched on my microphone. So good morning, good afternoon, depending on which part of the world you're dining in from. My name is Prabir, and I'm primarily responsible for starting Samsung ads in India and Southeast Asia. And I have the privilege and honor and in a very exciting space where, for the first time, a hardware manufacturer is entering the advertising territory. So we've been building solutions around advertising directly on the device, as well as a lot of measurement solutions, which gives you a sneak preview of what really happens in the TV device ecosystem. So I would say just at the beginning of this journey, very exciting. Lots had been learned and lots to be learned, and looking forward to an enriching conversation over the next half an hour, 40 minutes.
Thank you very much. So now we can dig a little bit more into the technical aspects of ad insertion. I would like to understand how each of you consider addressable TV formats, and not necessarily just TV, because a lot of you mentioned already that you're working on different platforms, different types of devices and applications and so on. Maybe we can start with Pravir, since you had the floor just before. What kind of formats do you deliver on Samsung Ads?
So we have two formats, and these are, I would say, uniquely positioned for our market, having been around in the US for over 5 years. In our region, specifically today, these are newer formats to deal with. So one format natively exists on the television device itself. It only, I would say, appears on the television when the user chooses to look for newer content on the TV device itself. We like to call it the first screen ad. And this particular first screen ad allows you to have different levels of interactivity on that particular ad unit. I think that's our premier property that we are bringing to the market. We also have launched a service called Samsung TV Plus. Samsung TV Plus is Samsung's proprietary fast service, which is free ad supporting streaming format content. There we are bringing in content from different channel partners around the world. There's a lot of emphasis on local content. And in that particular environment, we offer, video ads, as you might be familiar with other platforms, so to say. And on top of that, we offer holistic measurement on what really happened on the TV device. Are some of the offerings that we are bringing to the market today.
Thank you. Prasad, maybe you can also tell us what you're working on with operators, since you have a large variety of clients. What do they want? What did you already implement? What is working? What is the industry expecting?
Yeah, so when we primarily look at operators, right, point of view, it's largely linear inventories is where the focus is for addressable TV, and rightfully so, because there is a lot of untapped potential in making a linear inventory or a linear broadcast stream and then make it addressable, because you're bringing the inventory on par with a digital inventory there. And also, like, the broadcasting also provides one thing that's every advertiser looks for, which is the reach, right? So making the linear inventory addressable is primary focus for most of the operators, for that matter. So most of the addressable formats that we actually offer is on the linear inventory there. That said, like, the formats also depends upon, like, what kind of environment of the surface. For example, I use the Mark's word there, that the user or audience is watching, right? So on one bracket, you have like the connected TV space where probably it comes from, like pure IP delivered platforms, which is the content, and then ads come purely from the IP world. And on the second one, the second bracket is what I look at as more like a hybrid set-top box world, which operators are quite interested in, because that's a very, very large growing segment. And the content stream more DVB format in the traditional satellite or cable, but ad insertions can still happen through IP delivered ads. And the biggest chunk in our region, the Southeast Asia, is basically this large chunk of unconnected set-top boxes out there, right? So NVIDIA as such caters to all these various platforms, if you will, and the addressable formats are also dependent on where these being delivered to. Say, for example, on the connected TV side, we OAR, which is open addressable ready, with one large OEM manufacturer out of US, primarily actually catering to their connected TV offering, and then goes on onto the Android TV set-top boxes. We're also working with few players in that space to actually integrate our offering there, and also bringing the unconnected boxes onto addressable TV fold, right? So we kind of deliver to all these addressable formats, and for each market or each context or a bracket, the context varies, and then the addressable formats also change.
Kenny, maybe you can give us an insight on in Malaysia and the specific context. What do you do, and also what does it look like?
Okay, so specifically around addressable TV for Astro, we actually rolled out addressable TV on our VOD, especially OTT, in November last year. And then as of June, this month, actually, we actually rolled out addressable TV across all our boxes, set-top boxes. And I think we're the first one in Southeast Asia to do so, if I'm not mistaken. So we are rolling out in batches, of course, because they are the newer kinds of set-top boxes. So then we have the legacy kinds, but then it's going all out for all our devices anyway. So it's going to be on OTT or on VOD and linear, everything. So we most likely going to take about a month or two before everything gets rolled out. So we will have full inventory for addressable TV for everything in Astro for Malaysia by the next 2 months.
I would like to ask also now the other two speakers also if you can give some insights about this, but maybe also help understand the audiences, because I think Prasad and Kenny both mentioned that a lot of growth is happening on the video on demand segment, especially in this region in terms of content consumption. How does that also play in the strategy in terms of building addressable TV inventories? Is linear inventory still the main focus, or do we see the industry rather turning towards video on demand? Mark, maybe if you want to start.
Yeah, so linear is still about, give or take 50% of watch time. That can vary slightly, whether it's a retail device, an operator device in the country. So we look at linear as the single largest potential opportunity, just because there's that much potential inventory there. But what we also see is that there's an existing, tens of billions of dollars a year business on digital video in general. So one of my main focus areas, at least on the product side, is to make things compatible. So there are common accepted tools for measurement, for verification. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, because that's not what the advertiser or the brand wants. They want to be able to use their existing tools that they're used to using in the manner that they are used to using them, and be able to create a combined campaign. So while the single biggest addressable TV opportunity, in our opinion, is linear, and I'm not saying that VOD is not a fantastic opportunity, I just don't think it's as big, but we welcome them all. But within that context, I think that where it's possible, it's good to be able to use the common tools. It makes it just that much easier. It makes it easier for the brand to utilize their budget. You have a common currency. And it also allows you to do a much greater combined reach, because even the largest manufacturer of any category of device doesn't cover 60, 70, 80% of the population that, let's say, a large FMCG advertiser would like. But if you can take the phone, if you can take the TV and multiple other sources, and still deliver a unique combined reach without duplication, with common tools for across the surfaces for the measurement and verification, I think that's a very powerful value proposition to the advertiser, to the agencies and the brands.
Mm-hmm. So Mark, you're actually working with David also on deploying the solution for True. David, can you give us maybe a bit more context on Thailand, and how did you build your solution, also keeping all that aspect of all this linear consumption versus VOD consumption in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're coming from a very similar position to Kenny in Malaysia, in that True Visions has had a huge footprint here on the pay TV, cable and satellite side for many years. But we are starting to see those cord-cutting trends happening here. So to combat that, we've partnered with Mark, obviously, on the Android TV side, and developed this connected TV product. We're also able to, so viewers are able to view the 100+ channels from True Visions on the True ID TV box. So the linear simulcast channels are still driving the majority of our viewership. And that's where we see the huge revenue potential, in that, the majority of these channels have 9 to 12 minutes of advertising breaks every hour. So we're able to, insert our digital ads into those spots and overlay it with our telco data or our subscriber data or fintech data. We see that as a very compelling advertising proposition for the market. We also are very focused on video on demand as well. So we're able to serve pre-roll and also mid-roll ads into that on-demand content. But just to reiterate, the linear content is still very much king in our platform.
Okay. And to give us also an idea of the general market potential, can you give us maybe some figures or proportion in terms of addressable household reach in the case of True?
Yeah, I don't think I can disclose exact numbers.
I mean,
but
general
as I mentioned,
market potential, I would say rather.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, we definitely see the a lot of cutting happening on the cable and satellite side. So we're doing our best to retain that market share, not just for subscribers but also advertising budgets as well. So I think we're striving to hit sort of the 4 to 5 million addressable households in Thailand over the next year or so.
Yeah, which is big, right? So. Also, maybe other speakers, do you want to give some insights on what's the market potential we see for Southeast Asia or for the Asian region in general? Javier, if you want to go on the OEM manufacturer side, what do you expect and how fast do you expect also the potential reach to grow in the next years?
So we feel that it is definitely an exciting space to be in. There are different definitions of how do we define an addressable TV. And before I specifically answer your question that you're looking at for numbers against, I think it's important to differentiate from an advertiser agency lens, what do they mean by addressable TV? So when you go to an advertiser or an agency, they are looking at every TV which can be addressed either directly at the TV device or potentially through a third-party application or potentially through a third-party hardware device. And this is very unique to our region where TVs are connected to multiple devices. It is not the case in European or even US markets for that matter. So that makes our market very, very unique. And therefore, when you ask me that question, we specifically look at the addressable TV market lens from a TV space, not counting the other devices in the mix. So we're fundamentally focused on how many TVs natively are connecting to the internet, and then potentially streaming content on those devices. So with that lens, India today is about 25 odd million devices. It's a good threshold of the total TV population, and we are seeing similar numbers occurring in Southeast Asia. It has not reached critical mass as yet from an advertising agency standpoint, but it is a very important component from a buying perspective because there's a lot to learn. And one thing we are discovering, interestingly, again in this region, is that unlike historically where advertiser and agency will wait for technologies to mature, in the connected TV or the addressable TV space, we are seeing agencies and advertisers leapfrog and say, you know what, we know this will accelerate much quicker, and therefore we want to be a participant in this journey and not wait for it to hit critical mass. So that's a very exciting equation for us to tap into. The numbers are small, I would say, not from a pure internet space, which is still in the hundreds of millions today. But the opportunity itself is very exciting because TV has been a black box for a very long time, and this is just opening what's inside the TV.
Prasad and Mark, maybe you can also react on that, coming from rather the operator side, where pay TV platforms are usually more on a national landscape rather than a regional scope, like device manufacturers can work on. How do you see most thrive, I would say, in Southeast Asia, and what is also the potential in the upcoming years?
So we have been speaking to a lot of operator partners there, and then certainly addressable TV is in their roadmap in the next 12 to 18 months, right? And that adds to the critical mass that Prabir was mentioning about to actually bootstrap the market, right? But also it also is like equally important that we have a common currency across all these platforms, which is where the holy grail is that needs to be solved. There's a struggle in terms of how we actually move from spot-based buying to actually impression-based buying, right? It's a big hurdle that most of the pay TV operators need to cross, right? That said, the very fact that you have like millions and hundreds of millions of households that are pay TV operator driven, and those are all actually candidates for addressable TV is pretty exciting for us, right? We see probably next 18 months to have a sizable chunk of this market converted into addressability. Now, are we there yet in terms of the full addressability? Probably not. This also leads to, like, most of the agencies are not waiting for the market to mature because they have seen in other markets that we can make money on the addressability. So they are not waiting for the market to mature. They are just leapfrogging right now and say, like, let me contribute to the market growth as well from the agency point of view.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, from Android TV's perspective, how do you see also the opportunities moving forward?
How do we see what?
The opportunities moving forward, especially in Southeast Asia, like what kind of market will drive the...
So yeah, so on Android TV, we're looking at it not only from the set-top box point of view, but also from the TV panel point of view. So the numbers are definitely, I would lean towards the numbers that Prasad mentioned, where you're in the hundreds of million potential, and the approach is, I think, the one of the biggest, I wouldn't say challenges, it's more just time consuming, is working with the content owners. So in our case, since we're working on linear, that's primarily the broadcasters. And when you come up to a broadcaster who has their sacred cow that they've been working with for decades, without a whole lot of change, but pays the bills, and it often creates an intuitive resistance to something new that might be, and it requires patience and a willingness to sit down and explain things in the broadcaster language of how that's not actually the case, and how they will retain any control that they need while bringing in new revenue opportunities. The technical aspect of implementing the linear insertion is pretty straightforward. So once the broadcasters have come on board, we see a very immediate take up by the advertisers. Every agency that we're speaking to, and even the brands that we speak to, either directly or through the agency, none of them, and I think this goes to what both Prabir and Prasad already mentioned, no one's sitting there waiting for the product to be perfect. Everyone is saying, how come you don't have enough inventory for me? I want more. Give me more inventory. So I think the broadcasters need to, we need to do a good job of educating broadcasters that this is not quite as scary as they might think. I think a lot of that from their end is the fear of the unknown, rather than some really well-founded issues. But that's our job, and we continue to do it. But the worldwide TV budgets, are in the $200 or so billion range, depending on whose numbers here. So it's big money one way or another, and all of that will eventually become online video. Whether you call that addressable TV, whether you call that VOD online video, is almost irrelevant. The main thing is that in this type of a targetable digital video, those are the types of numbers that they're already there. They're just migrating from this column to this column. And so the opportunity is just, astounding. And it's really up to us not to drop the ball on that.
It's a very fair point. I would like maybe the media publishers of the panel to react to that. Like, how did your structure also evolve towards more digital solution? Kenny, do you wanna?
Yeah, like I mentioned, for Astro, we are now successfully rolled out addressable TV for VOD and for linear. So as of June, the next month, 100% of our households moving forward will be addressable enabled. So that's the first phase, right? So, but actually, what we have done in our roadmap, we are looking forward, and by the end of the year, we are looking at what we call, I think somebody alluded to that, which is what we call the unified addressable audience, or unified addressable video for one. So, and we're working in that with Kanta for what we call unified measurement. So we'll be selling no more on ratings, but on CPMs by the end of the year for everything, our entire inventory, both on TV, linear, VOD, also on our websites. Anything to do with video, that inventory that we have will all be unified under one measurement. And we have had that discussion with the agencies here. So the unified video, addressable video is the second phase. The third phase is when we unify, which we're doing now, which we unify all addressable audience. So what we are working, like I said, we are the largest radio operator in Malaysia. We also have a very large digital audio network with podcasts and radio. So we have addressable audio as well. So we have that. And then we have addressable shopping, e-commerce. And then we have, we also roll out our own broadband services, fiber. So we also have that. So we are actually, so all these audience, we're actually rolling into one, what we call unified addressable audience. By next year, we should have everything. So that is a journey that we are going on for ourselves as far as to bridge the whole gap and, to make sure that we are one step forward. But again, the most exciting space right now will be addressable TV, if you ask anybody, right? So, and just mentioned, so for us, we are very proud to be in the space already with linear. And, agencies are starting to come to us because there's a lot of expectations around how to deliver through linear, especially for multinationals who want incremental reach. I think that's the biggest thing for us. The other thing is that we are now having a lot of what we call small, medium enterprises, SMEs, who previously never wanted to advertise on TV because it was so far of a reach for them. But now the inquiries that we keep getting are actually from SMEs rather than from multinationals themselves. And because a lot of them don't go through agencies, they come direct to us because they are asking us, how do we do this without, spending that kind of money, but it's targeted either by postcode or by region or by a certain income level or certain demographic that we want. So I think that's the exciting thing because, like I said, previously TV never had the opportunity on the ad side to really talk to SMEs. Radio was mostly the SME market, but now there's a lot of discussions that we are selling a bundle with radio ads with addressable TV for SMEs. So it's a different, interesting dynamics for us in Astro and also in Malaysia.
Thank you very much. And David, can you give us also maybe some insights on what were your main commercial challenges to bring new advertisers when you started commercializing addressable inventories in Thailand specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned before that the majority of our viewership on digital platforms is linear. And what we see the pre-roll on linear content is a terrible experience for the user, for the advertiser, for product owners. So the ad insertion piece is really exciting for us. We launched one of our owned and operated channels, True For You, earlier this year. And we're seeing fantastic results in terms of there's no interruption to content. The ads stitch seamlessly into the TV breaks. The completion rates are almost 100%. And, it's a really great experience to be able to have that seamless TV environment, but with the powerful, digital targeting and measurement capabilities. So on True Digital, we carry a lot of the free-to-air broadcasters here in Thailand. So that's our next challenge and our next strategy is to try and work with as many broadcasters as possible to roll out ad insertion across as many of those channels as possible. And we think that represents a fantastic opportunity for both the broadcasters to increase revenue, to increase the user experience on their channels on our platform, but also to, open up more inventory and more scale for advertisers as well. And I think what's important to note is that although I'm talking about True Digital here, we really want to be pioneering ad insertion in this market. Because although we would love to unlock as many channels as possible on our own platform, we're also willing to help, and we really love to work with other broadcasters to help them roll out ad insertion on their own platforms as well. Because despite in many cases competing for the same advertising budgets, the more eyeballs, and as Mark mentioned before about the more combined reach we have in this market, the better and the healthier it will be for everyone.
Sorry, little mic issue. Thank you, David. I would like Pravir to give us also more insights on what's your position and what were your main commercial challenges. What still are your main commercial challenges entering this new space? Because as a hardware manufacturer, you were not involved so much into the content and the advertising industry before those new addressable opportunities. So, how do you work with content owner, media publishers?
So one thing we do differently as compared to all the other panelists is that we are not in the ad insertion business. We have chosen to build our own proprietary application and also a publisher platform which enables other applications to monetize. One big challenge, I think, what Kenny and David have kind of highlighted, and they're addressing it quite nicely, is uniformity of the buying metric. Specifically, if the content partner is a large publisher or a broadcaster. And there are still different currencies that broadcasters use to monetize the inventory. So one big challenge we have is because there is no content differentiation between what you're watching on linear versus what you're watching on digital. I do strongly believe that everything will become online video over the course of time. And the only differentiator would be what the screen size you're watching that particular content on. And the customers or the users of this part of the world are going to be spoiled for choices. You will have large broadcasters as well as bespoke content providers. Just like, I mean, just taking the example of India, we have little over 40 OTT platforms which are offering content from broadcast to very regional specific environment. So our big challenge specifically has been in making people understand the CPMs and how they are comparable to a broadcast quality pricing. But where we get typically caught up at in some of the conversations is the buyers are equating TV impressions to a mobile impression and then expecting the pricing to be at the same level. So that recalibration needs to be done at a content partner level, at least from the lens that we come from. And that will obviously bring some uniformity in terms of how people buy this inventory. And the other thing which will also uniquely happen in this particular space is going to be unlike the rest of the internet, which is display advertising, mobile advertising, which has a lot of remnant inventory. In the addressable TV space, you will not probably have that concept. Simply because of a very unique function of the device itself, which is you can only see one ad at any given point in time. TV is still not a multi-function device like a phone or a laptop, as the case might be. So there is going to be inventory pressure, which means less and less inventory can be bought for a given particular spot. There's going to be a more pricing pressure in terms of pricing going up. And there has to be a realization in the market that addressable TV or connected TV inventory is not going to be priced similar to the open internet or the other internet properties that they're used to buying. So that's a bit of, I would say, a pivot point that we're right now at as a hardware company, but it's great to see that Kenny and David are already crossing those chasms by making saying that there's a unified metric that you buy this inventory irrespective of how you buy it.
Yeah, totally. So can you actually react on that? How did your ad sales strategy monetize those formats? Because addressable formats are really in between traditional TV because we're on the big screen and digital video. So how do you monetize them on CPM or GRP basis?
I think, like I mentioned, for us, the way moving forward will be CPM. I don't think that we can move out from that. And it's largely two things. One is a measurement thing, which we're working with Kanta, which is our measurement provider for the unified audience, even for our traditional ad spots, and combine them with addressable TV. So that will become CPM rather than rating. So that's a key thing. But I think more important than that for the market like ours, maybe similarly to others, will be an education piece. Because we're trying to educate different parts of the market, right? So for us, one of the challenges is to, for example, is to talk to those people who have been buying digital, quote unquote, for many years, and asking them to buy addressable TV to them is like a totally different thing. But actually, the method of buying is the same, but they just, so that gap to bridge from digital to TV, addressable TV is one of those things which is interesting. It's something natural to them, but they are just afraid of the word TV, maybe. So for them to cross over, that's one side. Then you've got a problem from the other side crossing over, right? Your traditional TV buyers, and telling them that, look, you can do incremental reach, based on what you've been buying in the past, with targeted, audience settings and stuff like that. But trying to teach them to say, what you've been buying TV is okay, but now we just add addressable TV on top and you use this for targeting and for measurement. So for them, they can't get their heads around it because they just use the traditional planning tool. And I think, I don't know whether the rest of the panel here has the same problem, but for me personally, the biggest problem I have is actually with the procurement departments of multinationals and agencies, because the procurement department for TV will only know how to buy TV. The moment you put addressable TV in front of the procurement department, they don't know how to react. And I'm not sure who they pass it to, but it goes one big round, and some of the agencies or multinational clients that we have still don't know where to park addressable, audience or TV, right? So it becomes a very weird discussion. So that's the one I think that's going to be interesting. And a lot of people who are graduating now from marketing schools, from comms schools, all this, when they come out and they start to do media planning, have no idea what addressable is. So that's another thing that we have to cross over. Most likely we have to go to the education level. They know TV, they know radio, they know digital, but they have no idea how addressable works across the board. So that is something, I think, so those are my personal irritations with some of the things that we still have in the market. But that's me. I don't know the rest of the market.
I would plus 100 that, Kenny.
Prasad, Mark, I see you also reacting.
These are common problems that we encounter everywhere. I'd say we're in the education phase, particularly in these markets, right? Moving a traditional TV buyer to say, like, okay, go buy on impression basis is a tough ask, right? And then the next thing comes, like many of the panelists mentioned about, like, okay, what is a common measurement system, right? So these are the challenges right now. And then we need to be a lot more patient in terms of hand-holding them and educating them.
I'll add to that. There's always have two decks, one for the TV buyers and one for the digital buyers. And you sell TV to the TV. You sell a super TV product that has a few additional features, but is inherently TV to the TV buyers. Right. And you're selling digital video to the digital buyers. I think that helps. But there's also, I think, the bigger tension, and Kenny, I think it's worth it for us to make a separate seminar that you would lead, just to tell us how you would deal with the internal tension at the broadcaster, at the content owner, because I've been at joint meetings or phone calls with some of the other folks on this panel before with content owners, where you speak to the digital people, they think it's fantastic. When they realize this is linear insertion, they're saying, "Oh my God, you're going to have to talk to the linear people. We can't help you. And if you use the word digital, they'll throw you out of the office." And things like that are quite common. So this digital mindset versus broadcast mindset is up and down the entire value chain. It's not only at the buyer, it's also at the content owner. And like I said, Kenny, we're going to get in touch with you later to find out how we can solve that at scale across multiple countries.
If we start the discussion, it'll take us 2 weeks for us to just talk about those complex issues.
2 weeks. 2 weeks would be a lifesaver.
Yeah, but then there is the tension across the board, right? In terms of how, we talked about tech, but we haven't even talked about content, like what Mark mentioned, and how do we size up content? How do we do it differently? Linear versus VOD versus, and for me, the other issue that I have right now, actually, I didn't realize was an issue, but recently a couple of SMEs came to us and told me that I have an issue with creating the ads for addressable TV in the first place, because in the past, when I need to create a TV ad, I just need to create one. But if I want to create an addressable TV ad for 4 different market segments, I need to create, slightly, if I want to, slightly different variations of the ad. And if they're not careful, their cost will be multiplied 4 times. Right. So the question is that, yes, I want to do it. It's a wonderful idea, but how do I do it? And if I go to my traditional producers outside, the third party, TV ad producers, I'm going to face some issues. So they're asking our in-house creative teams now to help to create those ads more cheaply for them, which we can do at cost. So I think even our own creative solutions team within, our media team is getting a lot more requests than your traditional TVS, because they're not sure how to create it in a more cost-efficient manner. So those are the things that we didn't really think about until now. We have executed it, and people are saying, okay, okay, I want to target to 12 different segments, micro segments, right? And different ads. So how do I do it efficiently? I mean, do I create 12 different ads? Do I 12 different SKUs, different products, or the kind of stuff? So that kind of things I think will continue to improve. Is part of the ecosystem challenge that we have, both content internal and so content external.
Mm-hmm.
So if I pick up on what Kenny just said on personalization of creative, one of the things we have refrained from doing today is go down that specific path. And the reason for that is, and I'll keep my response short, is that TV is a co-viewing device. Is typically watched by more than one person at that given point in time. So unlike what we are habitually used to in the classical digital mindset of personalization, where you're likely engaging with the user on a one-to-one basis, TV remains a one-to-many device. So as part of our initial, I would say, the early incubation years of addressable TV, we have not gone down that path of complicating personalization in the TV world, because the upfront cost of creative customization would be very significant than what you do in digital adaptations. So we've kept away from personalization for now, but as the TV ecosystem evolves with more household data and less of individual demo or psychographics data, we are waiting for that curve to come before we start talking about personalization in the TV space.
Maybe that.
I would,
Sorry, Mark.
Sorry, no, if I may. So we're finding the video personalization. It's something that we've been doing with SMEs now for more than 10 years because of YouTube, and that also carries over into CTV space, because YouTube for or what we call YouTube Living Room, I think the name that my colleagues call it, is the name that we've given to YouTube on a large screen. So I think that we on one hand I agree with what Pravir is saying, is that you can't overcomplicate it, but we leave that up to the advertiser, right? In other words, if the advertiser feels that there's value in making multiple creatives and in micro targeting, then I think a well-informed advertiser can decide which path they want to go down. But there's already a whole bunch of both automated tools, specialized agencies, and there's a whole ecosystem already built up around making cost-effective creatives for YouTube. My guess, I know that some of the tools might be there that we own, but I'm quite sure, I know for a fact that there are many of a lot of the technology, and especially the agencies, are not necessarily affiliated with us, and you might be able to tap into that existing ecosystem out there without having to reinvent the wheel. But as far as especially if we go back to the ability to combine multiple surfaces, and I think, Kenny, that very much matches up with what you're describing about having all of your inventory across all of the distribution channels available on a single metric and a single buying. I don't think you can get away from people having to have, except for the most basic campaign, people are going to need multiple creatives, especially if you're combining all those different surfaces. So like I said, that ecosystem exists. And I'm sure that the agencies or the tech companies that facilitate this multiple iterations of creative in Malaysia are going to be very, very happy to see that they have more potential business.
David, maybe you want to talk about the Thailand context quickly and tell us how True is seeing this challenge with addressable creativity, basically.
Yeah, look, I mean, all of these things, all of these topics sound very familiar to me. We're facing these types of questions every day. Going back to pricing, I think that's something I think we currently sell by CPM, but I think as more and more agencies try to convince their TV advertisers to shift into digital, there's going to have to be some sort of methodology or some sort of industry practice, where they're comfortable with that rate. And then I think in terms of creatives, exactly what everyone else has just been saying now, let alone different creatives for different users. Our ad insertion product requires different creative specs to standard pre-roll as well. So that's something that we're having to overcome as well. But look, I think the proof of the pudding will be in the performance of the ads. I think that's another question that we're getting asked a lot about at the moment is what's the call to action on our ad insertion ad? So I think because it's all good and well having 99% completion rate, but what if that person went to make a cup of tea or stepped away from their TV for a period of time? How do we actually know whether someone's actually viewed that ad? So I think things like QR codes and also brand recall studies will be super important as a way of being able to measure back how many people actually saw the ad or the impact of that particular ad.
Yeah, it's a very important discussion also in pretty much every market, I guess. We're getting to the end of the session, so I would like to just go around the panel real quick and give you maybe 30 seconds to 1 minute to answer one last question. So we have on this panel a lot of very different actors which are getting involved in building the addressable market. How do you think the upcoming competitive landscape will evolve? How will set-top boxes operators, OEM manufacturers, agencies, media publishers work together in the future? Do we also expect harmonization, which is a topic that several of you mentioned already? David, if you want to start.
Absolutely, and try not to repeat what I mentioned earlier. I think the landscape is only going to become more and more competitive, especially from a publisher or a content distribution perspective, but we would welcome that. And especially from an ad insertion perspective, I really hope that this is something that takes off in this market. We want to be able to run this technology across as many channels as possible, and we hope that other channels can follow suit because, the more scale and the more inventory in the market means more budgets will start to shift into the space. And I think, everyone has their own role to play, and there's a piece of the pie for everyone.
Kenny?
I think it's quite apparent. I think one of the key things is that there's a lot of overlapping and blurring of lines between all. I mean, if you roll back a couple of years, the panel in this room won't be in the same panel. So now we are all in the same panel, which is quite weird if you came from the broadcasting world many years ago. So, but now we're all here talking about the same thing and different components of the ecosystem. So I think if you look at how it's happening, that has become a little bit more, in a way, complex yet integrated. Complex meaning that you're bringing different disciplines, but we're all relying on one another. And I think today, for me, when I look at the landscape, we have a lot more what I would personally call, this is my own definition, I would call it a lot more frenemies. We used to be quite different parts of the ecosystem, but now we have a lot of people whom we compete and yet ride on the same ecosystem together, right? So on ourselves, we actually now work very closely with the smart TV manufacturers as well, where we put our apps, our OTT apps, on smart TVs as well. So I think that's, again, you can see the integration of all this. And as David mentioned, we are talking to the FTA, networks to also then sell addressable for them, because previously pay TV and FTA were very different in the ecosystem. So if you look at it, we have a lot more things to manage, a lot more different complex terminologies and tech. But again, like I said, more different kinds of people that will bring the ecosystem and to have those discussions we've never had before. So those are the interesting things, and we're learning from different partners as well. And I'm personally keen to learn more about on the CTV side, which is, again, like I said, previously we had our own boxes and we were a little bit cut away from the TV side, but now we are very interconnected between the two and people switch back and forth. So I don't think we can escape the trend between those kind of stuff. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, a lot more interconnections between the actors of the industry. Prasad?
Yeah, just borrowing on some of the observations from Kenny and David, right? So there's a lot of synergistic partnerships that start building to enable this addressable TV in various markets, right? Start from the set-top box all the way to the advertisers. In between, you have the broadcasters who own the inventory rights and also the operators too. So that said, We also have new players coming in. For example, from the broadcaster side or the TV measurement side, you have these panels who now actually have a bigger role to play because they need to bring a common measurement across the digital as well as in the TV side of things. We would have even talked about panels on the digital scheme of things like about a couple of years back. Now they become important because like they make an extrapolation in terms of ad delivery and all that. And also the last piece is also on the regulatory agencies too in various markets, because now just the way the broadcast TV is or the broadcast feed is regulated, OTT is not. So in many ways, you don't have an operator coming in, and then in many markets, at least in Southeast Asia and India, for example, the operator is allowed to make changes on the content streams. So that limits. So many players here who all need to be aligned, including the regulatory agencies, to boost up this market and create these opportunities for us.
Maybe really short because I don't want to take too much time from the conversation. Mark, if you want to react.
Yeah, I'll paraphrase something that Kenny mentioned earlier. To go fully in depth, we need a few weeks, but I think we've covered the main points over here. So I'll do the most popular thing, which is I'll keep quiet and pass it to the next person and let everybody have a few extra minutes.
All right, thank you. Javier, the final word.
I think there are three actors which are key to the success of addressable TV. The most important one is broadcaster/content provider. The second one is measurement, and the third one is technology. I think these three needs to come together over the next 3 years to make it work. And I'm highly optimistic because the broadcasters would get a lot of this right, which the digital publishers did not get right. So those are the three things which needs to come together to make it work.
Yeah, and the initiatives are coming from basically every side. So thank you very much, all of you, to have participated in this session. We'll be back in a few minutes to talk about pay TV operators, OTT, direct-to-consumer strategy. I wish you all a very good morning and later day.
Thanks, Ophelia. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.